Young, I have an upcoming Amazon interview. How do I prepare? Is there a step-by-step guide to start preparing for your Amazon interview? What are some tips that you can give me so I can succeed in my next Amazon interview? Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Young from Career School. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and like this video because it really helps me create more content like this. I usually talk about career development as well as getting an MBA here in the US. So today, I'll be talking about how to succeed or how to prepare for your upcoming Amazon interview. Obviously, there's going to be so many ways to prepare for one, and there's going to be so much difference in the type of interviews that you are, getting because based on your role that you're applying. For example, a software development engineer role could be a very different experience from someone who's applying for a marketing role, right? But there are some core concepts that Amazon have in our interview processes that we can all kind of learn from. So I'll be going over how to prepare for your Amazon interview and tips around how you can succeed in your upcoming Amazon interview. Let's jump right in. Number one. So I think I've been talking about this just too many times now, but like 14 leadership principle. Study, dissect what it really means, and try to understand what each of these leadership principles mean. Because this is not only a way to crack your Amazon interview, but this is a great way to understand the company itself. A lot of the Amazonians will probably tell you that we live and breathe on Amazon leadership principles. Like these 14 leadership principles is the foundation of the company. We depend on it when we make decisions day-to-day basis. Check out different materials out there. You can check out my YouTube video around leadership principles. I think I have around 3 of them uploaded already. So really study the leadership principles and try to understand what each of them really mean. Number 2, question types. So in a normal Amazon interview, we ask you behavioral questions and some situational questions or case questions based on your experience or the role that you were applying for, right? For me, what really helped me out was having stories around each of these leadership principles. Obviously, some questions come up less frequently compared to others. For example, it's highly likely that you will be getting questions around customer obsession versus you probably won't be getting questions around frugality, for example. So I would strongly suggest that you have at least one strong answer per one leadership principle we have, especially for those really important ones like customer obsession, dive deep, ownership. These are some questions that you will obviously get. So prepare answers that can reflect and show your strength in these leadership principles we have at Amazon. Also, we do ask situational or case type of questions. I mean, these are not super complicated case questions, just like ones in, consulting, but we will give you a situation and we would assess you based on the answers you give. Whenever you give those questions, make sure that you think about leadership principles and apply it to the answers you're giving whenever you get these kind of case or situational questions during your interview. Number 3, use the STAR format. Please use the STAR format. So the interviewer will be taking a lot of notes when you're talking, when you're giving your answers, and it really helps the interviewer to, collect data, which is your answer, if you're giving it in a very structured way. And that means answering in a STAR format. A lot of the feedback I provide to some people or my friends who interview or mock interview, I tell them to have a very nice structure, because even if it's a really impactful story, if the interviewer does not understand what you're saying, it's just hard to evaluate, and you don't want that to happen. So spend around maybe 20% of the total time in the situation and the task, and then spend most of the time in the action part. One thing I would really recommend is always have the insight or the results. So for example, based on 1, 2, 3, 4 actions I took, I realized that the insight was something. Or based on the insights, I did 1, 2, 3, 4 actions, and then this was the result. It really helps the interviewer to collect data and also evaluate you better. Number 4, data. Please use quantitative data, performance data, or anything that's quantitative. I understand sometimes it's really hard to, make it quantifiable, but it really helps evaluate you. And this also is one of our leadership principle, dive deep. So having data in your story is really important. For example, because I have done A, B, C, the result was X, and X ultimately led to Y. X and Y's here are numbers. This really helps the interviewer to, understand the business impact and understand you better, honestly. If you're having a hard time quantifying your impact, think about it as revenue, saving money, or cost saving. How did you improve the process? Like, reducing the time, reducing the people who need to be in a certain process. Like, these are some stuff that you can literally use. Like, for example, by implementing this, we were able to save X amount of time yearly, and that led to saving Y amount of money. Like, this is a really structured and data-driven answer that you can provide. Number 5, prepare for follow-up questions. Amazon interviews are pretty tough. And I think the reason it's tough, or the reason you feel like it's tough, it's because we try to collect as many data as possible by asking you more questions. I know that other companies, they don't usually ask follow-up questions that often. They will probably ask you, please tell me about a time, blah, blah, blah. And then if you give an answer, they'll be like, okay. But here at Amazon, people really want to assess you better. They want to understand you better on the thought process and the actions you took and everything. So we ask you a lot of questions, follow-up questions based on your story. So please prepare for follow-up questions. Some of the frequently asked follow-up questions are like, obviously based on your story, but I like to ask questions like, what would you do differently? This is a great way to learn if you have the leadership principle of learn and be curious. Even if the project went perfectly, honestly, there's no such thing as perfect, and there's always ways to improve. So please prepare for follow-up questions, and this will help you immensely during your Amazon interview. Lastly, prepare for questions to ask the interviewer. At the end of the interview, you would most likely have around 10, maybe 5 minutes of time to ask questions to the interviewer. And this is your opportunity to learn more about the role or the company or the people you might be working with in the near future. So people say that questions should be things that can really show your interest in the role or show your interest in the company. That is very true. But that doesn't mean that you should be asking questions like, like very complicated questions, or questions like, hey, I saw this news that Jeff Bezos is stepping down. Like, what would that impact? Like, I mean, this is not really I don't think those are really good questions. Like, ask yourself what you're really curious about. Like, I think a good way to ask questions is like kind of going through thoroughly the job description and ask questions around it. Like, that will be a handful of questions that you can ask. And also, some questions can be asked are also around the job's responsibility or the role that your interviewer is in now. So prepare a few questions before you going into that interview so that you don't panic at the end. All right, that was it for today. I would say these are all equally important, but really try to understand the company and the role by studying the leadership principle is probably the most important part. And then understanding what kind of questions you are good and like preparing for your answers are really important as well. If you have anything, please leave a comment here, and also subscribe to my channel, like and share this video. and stay tuned for more videos like this. Thank you.